I think that people just need to be very, very clear when they're going to exhibit or they're going to an event to really break out who these people are.
I was on the way over here. We were thinking about
what we're going to talk about.
What we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And you started talking me through these aha moments that you had, obviously based on one of our past conversations, because that's what you have when you talk to me. Mm-hmm. It was this idea that when people are thinking about their ICP and going to a trade show, that's not enough to drive results. Talk me through kind of like the realization based on the conversation so we give people context.
Yeah, so we've always talked about companies usually have a very clear vision of, like, if you ask them, hey, who's your ICP? They have a document, they know the role, they know they know who their customer is. I think one of the things that I've learned over time through doing this is companies that exhibit a lot, these companies typically have multiple stakeholders, we'll call them, as customers. Some are decision makers, some are not. They have partner channels. There's various things. Mm-hmm. And I think that people just need to be very, very clear when they're going to exhibit or they're going to an event to really break out who these people are, because I think it guides and leads your entire strategy. So if you're not doing it and you're not thinking of some of these things, I think your strategy can really stray, and you could start to come up with ideas and things that really don't fit the bill versus building out these real curated experiences. So I'll give you like an example. When you start understanding the customer, which is who are they stakeholders? Are they influencers? Why are they at this specific event? What do they come for? What are they seeking? What's the aura of the event? Events do different things. They produce different vibes, different sort of outputs. People go for different reasons. Mm-hmm. When you realize why they're there, then I think you're able, and who they are, like event marketers are very different than engineers. Yeah. Engineers very different than HR different than sales, executives, and blah, 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 and on and on and on. So I think having that foundation, super important to break down and ask yourselves all of those questions. Who are they? Why are they there? What are they seeking? What's important to them? What's top of mind while they're at this event?
Got it. Let's talk about how you realize that this is important, right? Because I feel like that's something we've repeated multiple times on the show.
Yeah, right? I know it's important, but yeah.
We've had this conversation multiple times, but I really, really want to contextualize it, right?
Yeah.
Like it kind of came from this idea that I had a super successful trade show about a month ago that you gave me advice on, that we did a show on, and all this stuff. And then as we were getting to the end of the show and we were talking about, so what's next? I was like, well, I want to change the idea. You're like, whoa, don't be so quick to change the idea. People do that all the time. But I was like, no, wait. It's because the attendee was there. I was going from...
The attendee shifted.
The attendee shifted, right? Like I went from a show that was literally 680 of the decision makers that are there to sign contracts with me, who I'm dying to get in front of, to a show that's probably going to be about 1,000 people that work for those folks. And some of them, maybe 100, 150 of them are going to be those decision maker. It shifted for me the strategy from... I know I can close deals, to I want to create a great brand impression and take them home with a story to tell their boss.
I think it's a great example, and it's a part of the reason we brought it up, which is you go to this one conference, you have decision makers. I can sign a check right now, right here, a proposal, contract. I can make the decision emotionally on the fly and go. Mm-hmm. Great. Now you're going to you had a set strategy for them. Mm-hmm. You had messaging, you had engagement, you had a full play. And it crushed. So now you're going to this next show. What a lot of people will do, they'll pick up their booth, they'll pick up their assets, their marketing pieces, everything that they do, and they'll shift it into the next. And then they're done and like, oh, wow, we didn't have the same results. And it's kind of like, well, no shit. Because at show 2, you don't have 100% decision makers. Mm-hmm. Actually, you have 20%. It's far less. Yeah. Who's filling that 80%? Well, it's people that work for those decision makers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, they're still influencers of what you do. Mm-hmm. They still potentially could, again, influence, push to buy your product or to bring it up the ladder, but they're not getting it done today for you. So you're not going to have that immediacy of pipeline conversion and closing. Mm-hmm. So if you are conscious enough in thinking about your audience and you recognize that it's changing, your whole strategy has to change. Yep. Your message has to change. The way you engage them has to change. Mm-hmm. Your goals have to change.
Yeah. I would go like really deep into the idea that the engagement and all that stuff, it's all going to change, but it all changes because I need to speak to a different, for me, it's not just immediacy of like, I'm going to close today or not.
Yes.
Right? Like that's part of it.
Yeah.
But at the top of it is the pain point I'm solving for them
is different.
Is a different pain point, right?
And that goes into messaging.
Yeah.
A billion
So
percent.
contextually for me, right? Like if somebody hasn't listened to the show, go back and watch it. It was awesome. But I'm going, I'm selling an AI solution. And what I was saying at the decision maker show, it's the owner of the business show, was AI can now replace your workforce.
Yeah,
right?
Of course, yeah.
If I show up and I tell their team that, they're going to be freaked out. So I got to tell a very different story there of like, this is going to give you superpowers. And that at the top is like a key understanding that's going to inform the rest of the strategy.
And I've told like 2 stories numerous times, and they just so happen to be the calls that I am on.
Yeah.
And I think this is work that we're trying to do with a lot of our customers. So I think it happens more often than I'm not on every customer call. While back coming out of COVID, on a call with a customer, we do 2 exhibits for them per year, 2 different shows. And I'm on with their VP of marketing, their VP of sales. We're having a discussion and I start asking some questions about audience, these exact questions. And where we came into this split was they're like, well, we have a lot of customers there. But the conversation was so focused on prospects, new business. And then once this idea came up that there's customers, actual working customers that using their software day in and day out there, it kind of paused the conversation. And then they're like, well, okay, now I shifted this conversation into, well, if you feel like you have enough new prospects to engage, build pipeline, drive leads, and do what we've always done at this show, the VP of sales felt like, the VP of marketing felt like they were missing out on an opportunity to upsell, build relationship, and strengthen relationship with the customers. So essentially, Booth was built, it was designed, a strategy, engagement built out, and we added in a layer of doing something for their customers in there. Worked like a charm. Yeah. Second example, conversation years later, really good customer of ours.
Wait, so just let's dial in on that. So you went from just talking to prospects to recognizing that you don't just have prospects there, you have customers there. And you'd be missing the boat if you didn't do something to build a deeper rapport with your customer and turn your customer into an evangelist.
So everything in the booth historically was like demo stands. And they're trying to get people in and all the engagements being done to draw people in to do demos. What ended up happening was I said, okay, your customer there, what do they want? What do they say when, like these details matter so much. What do they say when they come by? What are they asking for? Are they popping by? Hey, what's up? Good to see you. Oh, let's meet later. But what is happening? And what we learned was sometimes they're showing up and they have issues with the software. This is when they want to talk about it now. They don't want to call customer service and like, hey, how's things going? Everything's great. Good to see you. Blah. Hey, I'm having this issue with boom. So what we did was we built a mini conference room in the back of the booth space with a big TV in there with a private room so they could take customers back there, hop on, log in, work through stuff with them.
I love that.
Work like a charm, right?
Yeah.
So second example.
Hold on. So that affects the space you're going to build out. It also affects your staffing plan, right? Like maybe, so now you're not thinking, hey, I need a
bunch of salespeople.
I'm not bringing 10 salespeople. I'm bringing 4 salespeople and 3 engineers or whatever, right? Like, so you got to, so the effect of this idea of going from
approach and strategy,
only prospects,
knowing the audience, and being deep and clued into who is there, why they're there, what they want, how they talk to you, what they're engaging you about matters. The nuances matter so much to the way you approach and strategize for your show.
And that's beyond ICP. And ICP is normally just like my ideal customer is this. You're now saying, all right, that's cool that that's your ideal customer, but who's at the show matters more to your show activation than your ICP matters to a company.
Without a doubt.
Okay, second example.
Second example, working with a customer. Again, I just so happen to be on this call. Great customer. They do a lot of partner events in technology, and we're having a conversation. And I've told the story before, but long story short was as we start asking about this event and asking about the audience, what we were able to sort of delineate with them was their buyer, their decision maker is an executive. It's like a CIO type of role. The person that they work with and implement through regularly and deal with all the time is senior level engineers. Well, we're like, okay, cool. Are they both there? Who's there? Blah, blah, blah. What we end up working out is the engineers are on the show floor because the show is kind of built, the floor, things happening for those engineers, right? But then these executives, these CIOs, they're off the floor. They're doing keynotes. They're doing talks, presentations. They're at meetings. They're going to dinners. So then rather than just going in and being like, let's build this booth, CIOs, engineers, let's get them, let's sell your product for them, blah, 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 build. No. The booth was built, money was scaled back actually, and built a simpler concept that was fun, geared towards the engineers, the information that they need, and just trying to build this awareness with them so that they enjoyed the company, enjoyed the brand, they got the information that they required, the things that they're curious about, because they're the ones using the platform, call it. So we're trying to relieve any confusion, make sure they understand it, right? So there's a whole strategy there. Giveaways, everything. But then money was shifted into offsite stuff. I think it was like it was like a $400 or $500 a plate exclusive private dinner to go get 20 CIOs to go here and do engagements outside. And if you don't delineate and break that down, if you're not doing it yourself as the event marketer, as the company deploying these dollars, and then you're working with an exhibit house or an agency or a builder or whoever you're working with, and they don't ask you those questions, what are you doing? I think you end up missing out. I think you miss on those curated, specific details that drive results.
So the questions that I'm hearing in this story, right? The question in the first story was like, who's actually there? The question in this story is not just who's there, but what are they doing when they're there?
Yeah,
right.
It all goes together.
You have multiple stakeholders at this thing, and the different stakeholders may or may not have different behaviors based on the show. Some are there for education, some are there to walk the trade show floor, others are there for whatever, right?
Yeah, what are they doing there?
Okay, so those are two good examples of how beyond ICP, right? Asking who's there and what are they doing at the show? Who's there and why are they there?
It matters.
Drives strategy from like the top-down messaging to the space that you build, to the engagement
design,
thing, to the budget you're going to spend.
Offsites, budget, where you shift it to. When I say strategy and approach, I don't think, I think sometimes I should probably dive into further what a strategy and an approach, the whole thing looks like. And it really dials into, that is one very important aspect of it. It should drive everything. And I think to get even to more details, okay, so you know who, say that you have, it's CIO, they're on the show floor, they're off the show floor, they're freaking everywhere, it's your ICP, that's who you're selling, that's who you're going for. Okay, well, are they predominantly male? Are they predominantly female? Are they a mix? What's their age? What do they like? What are they into? What are they used to? What does everybody give them, right? Let's give them what they don't get, but that they desire. Let's give, you have to dive, it goes into every detail. People are like, oh, let's do giveaways. I saw this thing, let's give this way. Bullshit. No, let's give them something different. But if we know who they are, then it's not just this dumb room where people are like, hey, I saw this thing, let's try it. It's like, no, let's come up with ideas rooted in a foundation. That to me is how the best ideas thrive. And honestly, Pablo, that's why events like Coachella, South by Southwest, consumer brand activations go so well. Because they know their customer. They know what they are. They group them. It's easier to group them, right? It's easier to understand what they're seeking, but they curate everything to them.
So let's talk about how to know your customer and who's going to the show and why they're there. Because for me, it's no secret that I've gotten basically everything I know about events from listening to the show, right? And that led to the idea. All of this comes from this because I was at the next show that we're going to last year with Vendaroo. And as we were exhibiting, I knew from listening here that I need to identify who's there and who isn't.
Pick up on those cues.
So I was just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm asking my salespeople and I'm asking other exhibitors. Hey guys, when you come here, is it your experience that the buyer isn't really here that much? And everyone's like, no, it's like, this one is more about partnerships. It's more about brand, the ones that know.
How many sales do you make? Are you signing?
I was asking people that at the show prior so that I knew a year later how to activate for a year later, right? So one way is to do that, be there before, walk the floor, do this type of stuff. What if I haven't been to a show before?
So it's a good question if you haven't been to a show before. So your boy Jesse, when him and I spoke, he had this come up. And I told him to go scout the show. I'm like, I know you feel like you're wasting a year, but I think you could waste a lot of money. And I also feel like you could just go there and minimally spend and still piss away money. And then you might learn. I would encourage either, right? We have a bit of a tactic strategy now that we do for live shows. or events in our space where we're trying to connect with our ICP, where I'll send, myself or like Cody or Molly or a couple of our team members, and we'll go and we'll run the podcast there.
Yeah.
So we'll go, maybe we'll throw a dinner with some connections and people that we have. We walk the floor, we hang out, we get in sessions, we teach a sessions, we do different, what are our options without deploying a full strategy? Then we go, we see how it goes, we see what the conversations, a little bit of homework, and then we go from there. I think another important thing that has me thinking about this, and it's something that I just talked recently with John Seeds, the CMO of T-Tech Digital, is he brought up a really point, a good point, something we've talked about in the past, which is people always have this thing like, well, we always go. Or our competitors go. That is a very real notion inside of companies. They go to events predominantly because they've always gone, because they're partner events, or because their competitors go. And they don't know if they drive results. It may not be the best event for them, but they're still going. You know what I would say to that? I used to be like all poo-poo on it and say, no, if they, you know what? I get it. I understand the politics inside of large organizations, and there's sometimes you're going to go no matter what. Well, at least do it the right way. So if you're going to go to an event that you've always gone to and it's not that great and you want to tell me why it's not great, okay, well, let's start talking about who's actually there. What results then can we drive? Because I guarantee we could drive better results than what you're driving. So what can we do at that show? Okay, buyer's not there. Got it. Okay. It's a lot of influencers. Okay, got it. It's a lot of shoppers. Give me all the negative nonsense you could give me, and I could still come up with a better approach and strategy based on that information, and then I would feel better about the budget that I'm deploying, and that 40 grand, 100 grand, 500 grand, million, 2 million, 10 million, whatever it is you're deploying.
Stall the money.
Yeah, I'll feel better about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would then go track some results and go back to someone and say, hey, we know we go to this show solely because we've always gone and because our competitors go, or because they're partners and we need to support them. And everybody poo-poos on it and the sales team gets mad and blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't need salespeople. I need product people. I need marketers. And we did this and we did, and then this is what we created. And then you go back with the results. It always goes back to understanding those fundamentals to deploy an approach and deploy a strategy, and just shoving and throwing a trade show booth or sponsoring a luncheon as a default is not an approach and a strategy.
Great way to burn money. So how do you know who's there and why they're there? Going there prior is undefeated. That's clear. Like being there, there before, knowing that it's undefeated. You talked about doing the podcast as an engagement strategy to get some data and going there and spending less and doing that. That's a really good strategy. When
there is data that you can get.
And there is data. My head always goes to like how useful a podcast is, because I think that you've also done some stuff of like reaching out ahead of time on a podcast to somebody that's going to be at a show that's been there before, and you can get some data that way. You can also just like, elbow grease it, connect with people on LinkedIn that you know have exhibited before, maybe not competitors, but partners, asking some questions. Like the idea of being able to go around the trade show floor and ask other exhibitors is not exclusive to at the trade show, because everybody's online these days. You can DM people on LinkedIn, you can find out these things, and it's really high ROI activity. Because at the end of the day, it's networking and it's growing people in the ecosystem that you can collaborate at these shows, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
No, it's a great point. On the data piece, I do think look, some bigger companies, these events are tough to get a grip on, right? They're tough to gain an understanding of who's actually there. If you talk to the association, they're going to give you the best data that they can curate and formulate on their own.
To get your money.
Yep. But again, at the end of the day, you have to ask them, you have to get the numbers from them. What I think is one of the best ways of doing it, and like I've done, is I talk to my competitors. I have friends that are CEOs of competitors. And I've built trust with some of them. You know what I mean? And I've always used this joke where we're talking about these type of things. And I'm like, hey, I don't mind talking about these things. I'm extremely comfortable talking about some of those things, like whether it's competitive advantage or what they're doing and things. Should I be at the show? Should we not? Because I've always said, if we get into an RFP together, may the best person win. I'm all for that. I'm all for trying to be better than you in a competition. But that doesn't mean that we can't, so my point is, I will talk to people. Talk to your peers that go to shows. Find a competitor, someone there, and say, "Hey, what's it like?"
Or a partner, or something. It doesn't have to be a competitor.
It doesn't have to be a competitor. That would be the most difficult aspect. But how do you gain data? And I think you do it by going to the prospectus or getting the data from them and asking, and then it's going to people that have been there.
Looking at last year's website and looking at the sponsors is a very easy list.
Looking at sponsors is a good cue. Yeah.
You're right. Look up someone on LinkedIn and hit them up, man.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's summarize real quick. people going to shows generally overcorrect for only prospects. We've talked about it a lot on the show that events are a moment in time where there are prospects, there's existing clients, there is partnerships to be had, there's a whole bunch of relationships to be nurtured. And if you're only asking who is there, is my ICP there? It's myopic. You need to ask who is going. Give me the different
more depth.
Yeah, figure out who is going and that mix of all these different types of people that are going, and then ask what are these mix of people going for, and what will their behavior be at the show, so that it informs your strategy in what your approach is, what your strategy is, what your booth, where you allocate your money, what space you build, who you bring, all these different things.
I factor that into, it's like squeezing the juice out of the fruit.
Squeeze the juice.
Squeeze the juice. I'm like that with everything that I do. And I think the details matter to get all the juice out of that fruit. So it's like if you don't have these depth of details with your customer and who they are, ICP, influencer, buyer, not buyer, partner, why are they there? Are they there for education? Are they there for finding new things? Are they there for, peer-to-peer? If you don't know these things, you can't really squeeze all that juice out and you can't really get the results you want.
What we were talking about is the importance of the big idea for event marketers. What is the importance of the big idea for event marketers?
So I think you have a lot of event marketers, this concept, I keep saying the big idea, but really what it is event people, planners, marketers, managers, coordinators, people working for companies, directors of events, they understand that they need to tell a story with the brand. They want to do creative shit. Right? So that's where it comes into what's the big idea? What's the theme? What's the story we're telling? They want to do those things. They want ideas. They want technology. They want ideas. So I thought about this a bunch and then I was like, man, I feel like we do this work with our customers who want to. Some people do not want to, and that is okay. But we have some customers that do want to. And I think if I just went through our portfolio of work, our best work comes from the people who want to. Hands down.
What do you mean by best work?
The best outcome, meaning not only does the trade show booth look the best and just the overall exhibit come out better, but I know on the back end, the work that goes into the strategy and the engagement and the follow through and their buy-in to everything is always better. So long story short, if you are an event marketer, and I understand you have a lot of stakeholders, sales and marketing and people, and you're wanting help, I would say this, I think a savvy event marketer can do it themselves. I would prefer you do it with my company and with us, right? But you can do it yourself. And here's a little bit of a step-by-step framework on how to come up with the big idea.
Before we go and you just talk for 45 minutes without letting me talk, I was just going to say that this is such an underrated concept. I'm really glad you brought it up, right? Because I think, number one, it is, at the end of the day, when we're in events, everybody, it's kind of like, I'm in the content game and everybody wants to see themselves as Joe Rogan or Oprah or whatever. When you're in events, you want to see yourself as the big activation, cool thing that you did at Coachella.
You'd like to.
Or whatever, right? So it is the dream state of all of us. And yet it feels like it gets beaten out of you by corporate spending and budget, and we just need to be there and go.
No time to think through it. No one to execute it for you. No one to give you the idea. Yeah, I agree.
But the value of it is real. That's why I asked you, what do you mean by best work? You said best outcomes.
It does create best
right?
outcomes.
And this is closely related to my own progression through events, thanks to this podcast and our relationship, has led to great outcomes. Because as I continue to dial in the concepts and whatever, I'm learning ideas, not just big ideas. I'm a big idea guy, but how to tie the big idea into an outcome ties through, having to have the right point of view narrative that creates the right engagement that leads to the right behavior, right? So I think I wanted to just clarify that for our friend that's listening, because as you go into this framework, that's the thing. We all want to do a big idea, but you're only going to be known as a creative person and be put to the kids' table unless your big idea is tied to big results. And I think that's the framework that you're about to talk about.
100%. Okay. I mean, I think big ideas, creativity, it's winning at events. It's standing out. And to be honest with you, who's the best at this is Louis Vuitton. Yes, no. Louis Vuitton's incredible at this. If you just Google Louis Vuitton activations, they do these robust, wild activations. They do them in the right locations where they have their ideal customer. I mean, think about Manhattan. They basically wrapped a building to make it look like Louis Vuitton luggage. It's incredible. I saw it myself. I mean, it's such a, I mean, anyway, they're very good at it. But so let's talk how to do it. Because I think a lot of people come up with bad ideas that are decent, but not transferable. Meaning you see something, you're like, oh, we should do that. And it's like,
let's go rep a building right now.
yes, and that's what happens. People in events, they see something, they chase it. You get people in a room, people just start throwing ideas. You, in my opinion, I have like a small 3-step process that I go through for our own company, for our clients, and I do think that it works. So essentially, you're trying to build a foundation to think from, to ideate from. You want to come up with ideas? We need a foundation, a North Star, something to tie us to. Okay, so the first thing that you do is you ask yourself, you make a list, and it's, does our company have a point of view? That's important to us, right? Do we have some huge differentiator? What is our value proposition? What is the problem we solve for the customer? Do you have some marketing message that is just freaking killer?
You've said it before really well. What hill are you willing to die on?
What hill are you willing to die on? What does your company want to stand for? Do you have a purpose? Do you have a cause? I like this one too. How does your customer feel? How is their life better after working with you? That's another one, right? So you have those lists, and I could come up with 10, that's probably about 8 of them, but there's about 10, 12 of them I think are very important. What's the problem you solve for the customer, right? And you just write these out. If you can do it by yourself, great. If you need a stakeholder, go get 1 or 2, ask the questions, write them out. Now you have all those answers. Maybe you only have 5 written out because you don't have the other ones. That's okay. Write out as many as you can get on paper. The next step is, which one matters most to the audience that you are activating in front of?
You said which one matters most. I was like, yeah, and then you go to the audience. That's huge. Yeah.
So for example,
which one matters most to the audience that's going to be
your purpose, cause, point of view may matter at a sales kickoff meeting or at some internal partner event bringing people in versus at a third-party trade show, your differentiator is going to matter or something. I don't know, but I'm just saying you get them, then you match it to the audience. The last part is really just saying in step 2 is, can you correlate multiple of them? I love that part. So step 1, answer those questions, as many as you can. Step 2, you ask yourself 2 questions. 1, which one resonates with the audience for this event? And the second part of that you ask yourself is, do any of these correlate together?
Got it.
So can I pair 2 of these? They're similar, they go together, right? So now you're just step 1, you've done step 2. Step 3 is the fun part. You have the hard work done. You've created direction. You've created an anchor, a North Star, a foundation, whatever you want to call it. Now we can start ideating. So then break them up into categories, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're just a bunch of chaotic people, just start throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, right? But make sure it sticks to that North Star foundation. So now we're talking what? Themes, overall vibe, story, experience. I mean, we throw an event every year, our own host event, EMC, right?
I've heard of it.
For event marketers and, directors of events and senior head of globals, whatever you want. Yeah, all the different titles, right? And I mean, everything we do is curated for them.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like we curate it based on who they are. So experience mapping. From when they arrive to when they get to do a dinner, map the experience, vibe, theme, brand, mapping experience, engagements, right? Your engagements, your giveaways, your raffles.
Let me pause you right there. What's the big idea at EMC?
At EMC, I can't say.
Okay, for real?
Won't say it.
Last year's.
Last year's?
Yeah.
Last year's really didn't. Last year's to me, because it was the first year that we did the event, the whole premise of Event Marketing Congress that we hosted was that we, through this podcast and talking to our customers, identified that senior level event marketers, managers, directors wanted peer-to-peer think tank workshop networking knowledge share. That's what they want. They wanted to collaborate with one another. They don't want to go to an event and get a bullshit pitch. They don't want to go to an event and get sold 24/7 by 900 vendors, blah, blah, blah. That's what they wanted. I heard that. So then we created an event that gave them that. So last year's theme, if anything, was I told my staff and my team, this is about them. This is about their time here, networking, communicating with one another, thinking, workshopping, right? And that was really the theme, and it worked. It hit.
I would say that last year's big idea was not only do we know you really well, but we are one of you and we care. Like I think
that's a great, yeah, that's a great,
right?
That's a great, you know, it's funny. I think that for EMC, that kind of was like a reverse osmosis thing, which I didn't even think about that. But as we started planning and doing, we're like, you know, you're like, damn, we are good at what we do.
Yeah.
We do know how to design experience and strategize and build. And, you know, yeah. So like the whole experience of the event, we know how to do it well too. So yes. And it's a challenge doing it for that type of, again, going back to what we talked about a half hour ago, was that audience. Our audience is event planners, marketers. They do it better than anybody else. How am I going to throw a good event for them?
I remember when thinking through it, and again, this is just going back to the big idea, right? Because to me, that was very present to me the whole time. I think this is why you just realized how valuable that was for that event. As we were thinking through it the whole time, there was a real theme of like, guys, we need to like, they need to walk away thinking, damn, these guys just did something I never thought about better than I thought I could do it. And that was a really, really important part, from like the gift baskets to the curation.
It was giving them ideas to run with.
Everything was an experience and an idea for them.
Which was secondary to giving them what I felt they wanted and needed.
Well, I thought giving them what they wanted and needed was the vehicle, but the big idea was like, I see you, I know you, and I'm one of you.
I don't know if I thought that until afterwards. I got you.
I did.
Okay, that's great. So as you get to step 3, essentially where you're going with this is, now you can map all this stuff. Vibe, theme, design, engagement, customer experience, write scripts from it. Who's communicating with who's engaging with, like, this is how you come up with the creativity. This is how you come up with the idea. This is how you come up with the fun stuff. But it must be rooted in something. And then as you're discussing these things, when someone's like, hey, let's do a Jeopardy game. And it's like, okay, walk me through how that connects with our North Star here. And I think that people need to do that. And it really is valuable. That is how you come up. The idea sometimes can be far simpler than you think. But when you have it, then you can theme, then you can vibe it, then you can come up with this overall approach, from a aesthetic design to the experience of when someone arrives, to what you say to them, to what you give to them, to how you want them. If you know those first 2 parts, you can then start to map how you want someone to feel. Right?
And you can start to like discard from like the bunch of stuff that comes out of the garbage can, right? Like, or not the garbage can, right? The brain.
Like, let's do the robot dog. Why? Why? I'm not against it, but why?
Yeah, I was just having that conversation with a friend of mine. So what's the experiential marketing, whatever, that just happened in Vegas? EMS. EMS just happened in Vegas. I have a friend that was there. He's like, dude, I'm unveiling this like awesome activation. It's like a golf game that then leads to a leaderboard, that then leads to like a survey, and then a list of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, that's a really well thought out engagement. My challenge to you is, because he has a photo booth business and he's graduating into like more of like an exhibit house kind of thing. And I'm like, my challenge to you is like, you need to then be able to do that, to contextualize it to like the story that someone's trying to tell, right? Like, and I went back to this idea of like, people are going to fall in love with this thing, but they're going to get results if, and this is my framework, if the big idea is wrapped in a category design concept, which is a from to, right? Like it's like you're taking someone from thinking one thing to thinking another. That was the big success that we had at my show, when I was like, you know, what I'm trying to get people to understand is that AI is no longer a software, it is now an employee, and then you started firing off great ideas.
See, I think that's a high level view of it. And I think, yes, 100%. Like what you just described there is, in theory, where you would love to get. I sometimes think down to the event planner, event marketer, event manager. They're working at this large company. They don't really have a say in that level of the message and where they're trying to move the customer. But they can derive all the information to come up with a theme, to come up with a vibe, to make sure that it nails. You know what I'm saying? But yes, ultimately though, if they have the CMO's ear, the VP of marketing's ear, the VP of sales, the proper stakeholders and everybody there, then 100% saying, hey, how can I round this out into where we're trying to get people to think? And I think that's just it's a very simple format.
I love the framework.
Obviously, what we do when we work with our customers, it's a little more complex, but to me, that is the foundation of, if you were paying me to consult you, to help you do this, that's where I'm starting. I mean, that's where I'm diving into.
So it's 3 steps, is essentially just like, let's go through our value prop, our differentiating factors, our mission, or like
problem you solve, purpose, cause, there's a gamut. I probably have 10 really solid questions that you need to try and answer 5 or 6 of them and get them on the board.
Cool. And then you go, all right, which two of these correspond? Like, can we like
I would say
layer
the
one
first
or two?
is the first part of step 2 is which one will resonate with the audience at the event.
Okay.
Second is, do any of these correlate?
Okay, so 10 questions of like what's, what makes us special and what is special to you. Second is who is there, what are they there for, and which one of these will matter the most. And by the way, are there like A, B, and C? Is there like a multiple choice here that you can add together? And then 3 is, okay, cool, let's go ideate with this frame in mind, because context really, really matters, not just
now you can go ideate, and then I think you can break up into categories. Can we come up with a theme? We don't need a theme, we just need more of a vibe, a direction, like, hey, like I've had it where we had a client that has a little bit of like a very strong, their vibe was like this like medieval type of brand, and they wanted to steer away from it. I'm like, no, go into it. I'm like, I'm talking medieval times. I'm gonna bring a freaking horse in there, right? So like, it doesn't need to be a theme. It could just be the vibe, and like, so theme, vibe, engagement, customer experience, scripts that you write for your staff, dinners, offsites, the way you communicate with them, all those fun, funky ideas, giveaways, raffles, they all go wrapped up into that. Does it tie back, or is it just some pie in the sky type thing?
I love it. I just want to say I don't have Tourette syndrome. I was doing a scene from Cable Guy when I did that.
I understand what you're doing.
But that being said, very easy framework, super underrated, valuable. I just want to end on one thing. And it's the idea that you said that the big idea is more valuable than we believe. Like, if you don't have a big idea, you're going to be completely commoditized on a trade show floor, and you're just wasting your money. Speak a little bit about that, just to add value, because we all want to do it, but you also got to be able to sell it, right?
Yeah, I think too many people lack that big idea. They lack the creativity. They lack the stand. When you talk to someone, they want to stand out. They want it to be creative, dynamic, wow, boom. So that stuff wins on the show floor. It gets attention. And then when you have the strategy to back it up, it's this like really well thought out, well done brand experience that people are like, wow, this is really well done. And I've walked through a lot of them. I've seen a lot of them. We've designed and built some. I've seen other people do them. You know them when you see them and when you experience them.
I like that this is what makes it a brand experience, because the first 2 parts of it is what makes it on brand. And then the third part, the big idea, is what makes it an experience. That drives results.
And then you're talking story, how you're communicating with a customer, everything. And then I think that brand experience dictates how they feel about your brand when they leave you.
Cool.
Nice, man.